What's up, gamers? Today I'm here with a review of the RG35XX H from Anbernic, and I'm going to go ahead and say it, this is the budget device to get in 2024, at least so far. Let's get into it. When Anbernic announced the H variant of the RG35XX line, I'm not going to lie, it took me by surprise. I was shocked that after just releasing the Plus model only a month prior, they were already announcing another model. And to be quite honest, that annoyed me a little bit because these devices have the exact same specs, except this one comes with joysticks. Now, the specs of this device are powerful enough to run up to PSP games, and that includes things like the Nintendo 64 and the Dreamcast, and those games use joysticks. The Plus model doesn't have them. But speaking of specs, let's take a look at those real quick. This has an H700 quad-core ARM Cortex-A53 1.5 GHz processor. It also has a dual-core G31 MP2 GPU, and it comes with 1 GB of LPDDR4 RAM. Linux fans will be glad to know that this is a Linux-based device. There's no Android here. However, there's also not really a good custom firmware option yet. I know that there are people working on it, and there are a couple of options. We have the alpha build of Garlic OS 2.0, and we also have what I think is the beta version of Koriki, which is built on Batocera. And I guess while I'm talking about it, I'll just show it to you. The Koriki firmware does show a lot of promise on this device. I love how you can download different themes to make this more customized to your personal taste. And even though it still has quite a few bugs to work out, I do think that over time, this is going to be one of the best options you can have for the H model. And speaking of great options, why don't you go ahead and opt in to subscribing to Bono's Gaming? Just go ahead and click that button right now. I really appreciate it. Now, Garlic OS I haven't tried out quite yet. I've been waiting for it to get to at least its beta build, but I am watching it closely, and I really hope that Black Seraph and his team can deliver us something that's just as good, if not better, than Garlic OS 1.0 on the original RG35XX, because I love that OS. But lastly, what you really do need to know is that Anbernic has actually just recently updated their own stock firmware, and they did make some improvements. When I first got this, I actually wasn't sure I was going to enjoy it very much, but with their recent January 30th update, which you can download from their website, I did find things to be improved. For starters, it got a great new homepage. I love the way that this looks. And although I'm not quite sure if there are any performance improvements, I do get this general overall sense of things just running a little bit smoother now, and I'm not going to complain about that. Other features of this device is that we do have a 3.5mm headphone jack on top, as well as an HDMI out. You can actually turn this little handheld into a console, as you can with many of Anbernic's products, and that's a really fun little bonus thing that you can do with these. There are two USB-C slots on top. One is for charging or an extra controller, and the other one is for another controller. So you can actually play with wired controllers on this device. And then on bottom, we do have two TF card slots, one for the OS and then one for additional games, as well as dual stereo speakers. And they don't sound half bad. Let's go ahead and take a listen. So one of the changes they made from the original to the Plus and H models here is that they have these recessed side buttons. The power, the reset, and the volume buttons are all flush with the device. And I think that's a welcome change because it's not as easy to hit accidentally, but I also kind of don't like it because I actually had a hard time finding the volume button. Even though there's not a lot of space here to look, I actually find it a little bit difficult to adjust the volume when I want to without stopping what I'm doing and actually looking at the side of the device. That's a really minor complaint. We do again have a 640 by 480 4:3 display here, and that's great for most retro games. You're going to find that one of the systems that doesn't look great is going to be the PSP, because the PSP was 16 by 9 and this isn't going to give you that. So it's just going to look a little small. I have it stretched out here in my video to take advantage of the full screen, so that is an option if you can live with it looking like that. But otherwise, you might find some things a little difficult to see, text a little hard to read, some images a little hard to make out. But speaking of PSP, I'm going to go ahead and say this too, that the PSP really is kind of a bonus device on the RG35XX H. There are going to be a good amount of games that are playable, at least. Some of them are going to run really well. There's going to be quite a few others that you have to make a lot of adjustments to. For example, Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker, that game, you have to turn the frame skip on and do some other things, and really, to get it at 100% speed, you're going to be playing at 10 frames per second. And while, again, hey, it's going to be playable, and while you'll see a lot of stuttering, you won't see the slowdown. So it's just going to be up to you if you can live with that kind of performance. Nintendo DS, Nintendo 64, I actually think are running better now on the updated firmware, and most of the games that I've tried have worked really well. DS games that rely heavily on the touchscreen aren't going to be good for this device. This isn't a touchscreen device. It does have a virtual pen that you can move around, but if the game really requires that quick and precise control of a stylus, this is going to be kind of hard to play on. Dreamcast also runs like a dream on here. I'm not going to say every game is going to run at 100% because I didn't try them all, but the ones that I did try, I really enjoyed and I thought they ran fantastic. And of course, all of you that are looking for that true retro experience for games prior to the existence of joysticks on a controller, those Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo games, those things are going to run perfectly. I know there's a lot of Pokemon fans out there looking at these devices, and yeah, the DS ones and back, the DS, Game Boy Advance, even Game Boy, those are going to look fantastic and run really well here. You can also play a slew of arcade games, so you arcade fanatics out there, rejoice, this can do that too. In fact, this does support over 30 emulators. A couple of quirky things that I wish were different. For starters is the function button. The function button, which is the menu button on the Plus model, which is right there in the middle. It's really easy to just reach over, hold that with your thumb, and then use your index fingers to load and save your games. Where this is placed up on top of the device, you have to kind of reach up and over your triggers, hold that down, and then hit L1 or R1 to save and load. Now, loading the game isn't too bad. You can kind of reach over and just hit this with your other hand, but saving the game with R1, I really have to totally re-grip the device. I have to let go of my left hand, reach over, hit the function button, and then hit the trigger with my right finger. And that's not a huge deal. Usually you stop and save when you're in a safe place, so you can do that, but it's just a little bit awkward, and I wanted to mention it in the review. Something else that's just kind of odd is that the face buttons, they did raise them. They're higher up. There's more travel distance now than there is on the Plus model or on the original RG35XX. I'm not really sure what they were thinking when they did that or what the purpose was, but if you've played those other devices and are used to them, this is going to be pretty immediately noticeable. In fact, I noticed it in my unboxing review as soon as I took it out of the box. I would also say that the buttons in the D-pad are just a little more stiff than they are on the Plus model or the original model, and that mixed with that extra travel time is not the best combo, but the more I played it, the more I got used to it. Now, I always try to do a Pocketability test on these devices if they look small enough to fit in my pocket, so here you go. It fits quite nice. It just slides right in and out. It is thin and pretty boxy looking. There's not a lot that's protruding from the device other than the joysticks themselves, and those are pretty close to flush, so I would say this is an extremely pocketable device. All things considered, I've really enjoyed my time with the H variant of this series. In fact, I'm kind of still perturbed that they announced this first and didn't just announce both of these at the same time, because if I had known that this was coming, I would have picked this one for the joysticks alone over the Plus model. But either way you go, as long as you can play the games that you like, they're both winners. They come in at a great and fair price point, and I think they'll last you quite a while. And I think in the next 3 to 4 months, as custom firmwares become better and more readily available, these are going to be a couple of the best Anbernic devices you can get. So if you're interested, I have affiliate links to both Anbernic's website and Amazon down below in the description, and using those links really helps out the channel at no added cost to you so that I can continue to bring you great content. And that's the Anbernic RG35XX H. It has great build quality, the sticks are nice, the buttons are nice, a little extra travel time, but that's okay. And it's a zippy little device with a decent screen at an affordable price. Again, it's like if you combined a Dreamcast, a PSP, a Nintendo DS, a Nintendo 64, a Super Nintendo, a Sega Genesis, an arcade machine, all of those things together, and then you could carry it around in your pocket for like $68. If you had told me I could do that as a kid, I would have been like, you're crazy, man. But let me know what you think in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with a friend. Stay kind and encouraging out there, and I'll catch you on the flippity flip.